impacts of broad spectrum chemical pesticides are they generate a lot of resilience in the non-target pest. Particles should be used. What are the safe criteria for nanoparticles to be used for different crops? Because the absorption pattern of crops is very different, and then the consumption pattern is different. So we thought that you just can't have one size fit all. But then we realized उस one size fit all के लिए भी कोई standard नहीं है. So we published this paper, and we raised the urge that we should see about the prospects and challenges in India. And based on that paper, Department of Biotechnology, they called us and they said that we are going to form a committee to see how to form the guidelines for this. Now, so we developed the nanoparticles, but then we chose something because, as I said, I wanted to blend the most traditional rural and low-cost resource available to the modern high-tech nanotechnology in tea production. So we decided to, we decided to make nanoparticles, but then we chose cow dung and cow urine as our base material. The reason was we always thought that this is a good soil conditioner. It was available to the farmer at the low price. So we first conducted a brains. Unilever pitched in, and Tata's also pitched in, and they said that at that time Greenpeace has raised a huge concern about tea having DDTs and pesticides and all. So they said, okay, fine, let us fund a study, and we did this study. It was first we started with a cohort study, and then we did it a real big survey. So we found that 1031 species of arthropods are associated with tea, because tea is a monoculture, and whenever you have monoculture, you have colonies of pests in the comfort zone continuously enjoying it. Then tea alone is one such crop. Every part of tea is consumed by pest, every part of the bush. And the annual loss for a dollar crop is 11 to 55%. Now, tea is not a cereal crop in our country. It is grown in very selective areas. So 11% to 55%, I mean, like, just look at the range, is fairly high. And particularly when your yield is less and your income is more, this really becomes a very impactful thing. And there has been very heavy use of synthetic chemicals for it. So as I just said, every part, starting from the bush to the root, every part is continuously used by some or the other pest. So one size of any agrochemical was anyways not fitting in. So we spoke to a couple of people who were, particularly there is a place in Darjeeling called Makai Badi. And I said, I only drank Makai Badi tea, so it tasted so different. So I traveled to Makai Badi, and then I asked the people, what do you do which nobody else is doing? So they said, you can't spray something for which so many pests can die. There is no one such molecule. But what you can do is as a practice, and what that practice would be? That practice would be fumigation. So we just heard about homotherapy on the ground floor. So that homotherapy was like, it did not allow the pests to settle. There were certain resins they walked through in the field. It did not allow the pest to settle and then damage. So it was very quick, and it did not even destroy the crop, it did not even give the residual effect, and it was uncomfortable situation to all the pests which were around. It was not entering, it was not systemic, it was not entering into any of the pests. So we published a paper for that. And before we actually jumped on to develop nanoparticles, we thought that possibly color attraction would do something. So we did this yellow sticky traps on the tree. These are like yellow sticky cards in cereal crops we have. And tea is like one single farm, one single tea garden is that big, so it was not possible. So we just covered the tree, the shade trees. And then this was a closer view, wherein you can see here the damage. These are the commercial assets. Tea only leaves are sold, and they are severely impacted. You don't see it in the bigger field, but when individual leaves are plucked, they are affected. So we classified them into different, like what are the major ones, at what stage do they impact, what is the loss of each one of them,
and people have some questions.
What is the loss of each one of them. And we also specifically narrowed down on one pest which did not affect the top layer, that is the commercial layer, but it affected the bottom layer. Now, what was our interest in something which is affecting the non-commercial layer? It was making the plant weak and more vulnerable, more susceptible, because that is called the mother bush. It consumes the mother bush, no photosynthesis, no strength in the plant. So we chose red spider mite, and from there we chose cow dung and cow urine as a base material. We went to the British Ayurveda and Krishi Parashar, and in which it is very clearly written about Gomai Vasate Lakshmi, which means Lakshmi, goddess Lakshmi resides in cow dung, and we did not know what it meant. So we thought, okay, does it have gold? No, it did not. Ornaments bhi nahi aa rahe the bahar usme se. We tried it. We really did it. We not search for ornaments, but we tried to dry it. We tried to make liquid slurry out of it, but we just didn't know Lakshmi kahan hai. We just didn't know. Then we thought possibly we should do the profiling of it. So more than 10% profiling we could do. There are so many microbes, and these microbes, some of them have excellent soil conditioning, pest repellent properties. So we thought possibly, in a colloquial term, we'll take it as this is Lakshmi. So we started with cow dung, assuming it to be the gold mine of microbes, and then we realized it also has insecticidal properties. Then cow urine. We all know that Agriculture University of Junagadh, they did a project and they extracted gold salt, Swarnshar. They extracted from cow urine, and when I read that report and I met the scientist who did it, I was at least concerned, okay, that Lakshmi part comes here. No. I mean, I did not read the Vedic, so my misinterpretation, kindly overlook and forgive. But as a layman, if I say I read something and then I don't find any evidence, then I don't even find somebody to help me to interpret. So this is a disconnect which we have. So there was gold salt. I mean, Swarnshar was actually found, and this is a published paper. So and this also had a lot of insecticidal properties. So we prepared and characterized the infected leaves here. Then we also made a cow dung slurry. It was like huge, and the tea garden owners were like, tea is something which people drink for flavor. And imagine cup of tea has cow dung or cow urine flavor. So he wanted to make sure. I mean, his only concern was, you will give me a smell test that this tea does not have cow urine smell. But when we were making cow urine nanoparticles, we did not have that cow urine smell at all. Even in the cow urine liquid, we did not have that smell. So I said, now how do I do that smell test for you? Because it does not get retained in the dried made tea. It is a fermentation process. Then they also said, cow dung ka taste nahi hona chahiye. It is something, if I tell you, इसमें Japanese meal का taste नहीं होना चाहिए, and you have never tasted Japanese meal, how would you really say? I never tasted cow dung, so I just don't know उसमें cow dung का taste है या नहीं. So these were the questions which came to me like bolt from the blue. ऐसे taste तो कैसे होगा? Cow dung से nanoparticle बन गए नहीं, cow dung का taste चाय में नहीं और cow urine का smell चाय में नहीं. So these were the two conditions he made me sign, and we said okay fine. So we did this test in 4 tea estates, and then we synthesized zinc and iron. We took it because they were even deficient in the nutrient, as I said before. So zinc and iron were they usually make the plant resilient, and this was the cow dung extract, and from here we made the nanoparticles, and then we did the analytical studies. So we did spectroscopic studies at 30, 40, 50 and 60 degrees, and we found that at 50 degrees we were able to see some very weak peaks. And then we did it for effect of salt, when we want to make it as a salt. So we also see, is there any impact on salt? Then we did SEM, EDX and FTIR also. And then we made a control. The control was made by propaldehyde, which was the common acaricide, because it is a mite, a red spider mite. It is killed by acaricides. So the common acaricide was propaldehyde chemical. So we made the control for that. We made a positive control as neem, because neem was green. and it was not cow dung and it was not cow urine, so the tea owner was okay, fine with it. So we found that the most effective one was zinc oxide nanoparticle at 1000 ppm, and it was 1000 ppm again on eggs. Like we just did for two methods. One was leaf dip method and another was spray method. So we dipped the leaf in the solution and then we sprayed it over the solution, and we found that is absorption making a difference because it was nanoparticle, it was getting absorbed anyways. So we found that in both the cases, our 1000 ppm was much better than control, and it was even better than the most popularized neem bioproduct. And then we did it on eggs. The previous one was on adults, and this is what we did it on eggs, and we again found the same result, that the cow dung was giving much better protection. We did repellency test, that does it cause repellency or ovipositional deterrence. So the concentration ppm, and we found that 1000 ppm was actually doing good justice. It had no phytotoxic effect. Nobody died. I was the first one to taste it. I am still alive. Plant did not die. So no phytotoxic effect was there. No visible injury was there on the tip, on the leaf tip or the commercial part of it. And there was no wilting, necrosis, or all the signs which we call as ill plant health. Organoleptic test also we did. That means the taste and smell and aromatic test, and it was found fine. The tea garden owner was much relaxed, much more than me. Now this is what we did with cow urine. When we made nanoparticles, this is what we did. And then again the same test. We did the effect of temperature and the effect of salt concentration. And we did SEM, EDX and FTIR for those. And then we did the efficacy test. So here also our control was much more in leaf dip and spray method as contrast to the neem and the control one. And this is on fecundity and egg laying capacity and then the eggs. So we found that it was doing very well in eggs, thereby breaking the life cycle of the red spider mite itself. There was again no phytotoxic effect of cow urine also. I'm still alive. And there was no visible injury. And when we did the tainting test, the score was 6.5 to 7, which is considered to be a very, very safe score. So advantages were it did address the major challenges of emerging contaminants. Residue in the leaf, we were not able to detect it. Major dilution we did, we were not able to detect. Bioaccumulation was not there. Non-target species destruction, we did the entire experiment on spiders because spider is a friendly insect in the tea gardens, but it did not kill spiders. So it is not targeting the non-target pest. It was easy and it was less costly in contrast to the chemical ones. So the future scopes are to study the better effectiveness, bioavailability and environmental sustainability, and good for commercial scale up. Now there are barriers. When I say that this is a technology and it needs to be developed and it can be upscaled, so I sum up all the barriers in 3 ways. The whole property of cow dung is very much animal centric. So if the animal is not well, that means if the cattle is not well or the feed is wrong, or if the real-time health data is not collected. So we do have cattle sensors on the ears they plug in. But first, it does not give correct data. Second, the data is huge. So interpretation of data is again a problem. And then the third one is when somebody is having, gaushalas are usually sourced for large scale production of nanoparticles. So gaushala to the industry is not mapped on blockchain. So these are the 3 B's which are the barriers. And 4 R's to make any green revolution technology more sustainable is robustness. It should be very robust. It should be recovered, and reorientation and reorganization. So we tried to achieve all 4 in our experiment, and that was it. The tea is safer than before, and I'm still alive, so nobody died drinking that tea. Yeah, and I still drink tea. So I would say that we can innovate with technology more. There is so much more work needs to be done in this spectrum, in this segment. There is always a better way to do things. Possibly the same experiment if somebody else does, but does it better, even better. So these are the coordinates if somebody would like to be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sir, at least by 5% when we finished up with the product, 5%. Now it has been 7 years we have completed it because we took 3 areas, Kowtha, we took northeast and then we took the southern Delhi hills. So
quality, taste is
quality is much better. Quality is much better. The tea leaves are softer and then the aroma retention is higher. Now I have no reason to explain the pathway of aroma retention. I'm still doing it, but this is an outcome.
But the price of the tea also might have gone up.
No, it did not, because cow dung is a very rural resource. So had it been like, I would have said use gold cow dung or gold nanoparticle or something.
Because of the increase in the aroma and yield, the farmer will be getting much more.
Sir, actually, tea is sold in auctions. So auction is always a consolidated price. It is not yield based.
Okay, any questions?
I have a comment only.
Yes, please.
Basically, with my interest in the biodiversity part of it, I do follow the natural farming processes, where actually, the cow dung and cow urine are the main inputs. Essentially, that natural farming system focuses more on the improvement of the soil ecosystem, microbial ecosystem. But in tea, it is not possible. It's only possible when you are doing an annual or biennial crop, not for the perennial crop. There actually I observed that most of the times the advocates of natural farming speak about using only the cow urine or cow dung of the desi, the local breeds, not the hybrids, that are used essentially for the higher productivity, higher milk yield, etc. Because actually they have a logic also. They say the microbiome, gut microbiome is far different within the desi cows as compared to them. Perhaps my only thought is you have to consider that aspect and then do some understanding, have little understanding. Perhaps in terms of the pesticidal efficacy also, the microbiome characters, it's too complex, one cannot study the entire, and I do understand about it. However, but at least whether there is any functional difference in terms of the pesticidal activity.
Sir, thank you so much. This is a very important aspect because we took cow dung consistently from Gaushala, which has a mixed breed. So if we actually segregate it and then see, because I said in one of the barriers where the cattle is punched with a sensor, the data which comes largely comes on health aspect, like the cow is not pregnant, the cow is healthy, it is not having that foot and mouth disease, but it does not speak about the microbes and the breed. So possibly that is an important thing I am missing out. And
if it is a Gaushala, it is a native cow.
It is a native cow. Okay.
One more important point to add to Sar's comment. You have used this cow dung separately and mixed with water, or how did you use them?
Yeah, we made a slurry of it.
Water and normal water or tap water?
Normal.
Then urine also you mixed separately.
Urine was already diluted. We did serial dilution when you wanted to do the microbial.
What was the proportion of water and cow dung?
We did serial dilution, so it was 10, then 1 and 9, 2 and 8, 3 and 7, 6 and 4, 7 and 3, like this. So when we were able to draw the pure culture out of it, then we kept on it.
In all respects, I compliment you for an excellent oration and the innovation that has gone into it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Vrindavan worked in Jobber for many
Worked in
years.
Dabur earlier, but my passion is in biodiversity.
But traditional farming always cow dung is being used in farming.
Yes, sir. It's a good moisture also it used to soil.
Why not the slurry of cow dung with cow urine?
Jivamrutam, I have not finished my comment.
Sorry,
So if you use your Jivamrutam,
yes.
what is being suggested by all our organic farmers?
Right.
Like use cow dung, desi cow urine, within 24 hours only you have to use. Maybe a liter with 1 kg of cow dung. Then use some chana powder. Then gur, jaggery. Mix it, store it for 15 days.
Okay.
After 3-4 days, it starts giving a very good
Balance.
bioasc smell. Also, you will find the different smell. So from that day to 15 days. If you use that, you will not have the pest also on the plants.
So you're suggesting I should make nanoparticles from Jivamritam? This is what it is?
If you are using separately, instead of that, if you use it from Jivamritam,
Right.
it may give you wonders.
I should try this. I will surely.
I am already using it for my terrace garden.
So we can
I'm
actually,
getting
yes, we can actually talk more.
Note down the email address and then contact.
Yes, please, we can.
Dr. Kosraj?
Yes, yes.
One quick clarification. The microbiome, it changes depending on the type.
So it does. It heavily does. Because the cow's stomach
the
is.
desi cow and the.
Yeah, actually, I can only speak of diet because lignocellulose heavy material.
Grass
like
fed cow and
the,
grain fed.
the grain fed cow, it differs. The lignocellulosic material, particularly in the Punjab, Haryana side, where they have so much of rice parali, the rice stubbles, it is very, very dense on cellulose, and the cow's stomach doesn't digest it very comfortably. So then you find a lot of fibers in the cow dung, and then it is difficult to convert them into nanoparticles because they keep on, silica keeps on interfering. And silica is, among nanocontaminants, silica is a huge contaminant. It is very difficult for me to just release out silica. It is difficult for me to make a nanoparticle and does not have silica contaminant in it. It is that.
There are many factors which influence anyway in
Yes.
terms of the application and the effects also. I think let me congratulate Dr. Kavya
Thank you.
for excellent.
It's a wonderful work, man.
Thank you.
It's a very innovative.
It has been my pleasure actually to be associated with SRIVT and to get this opportunity to speak about ancient lessons for modern integrated education. And what I'm going to do is go through a series of slides, and at the end I will be happy to answer questions or make some comments. Well, the world that I work with is in chemistry, and one of the areas of my research has been bhasma. That's something that is closely connected to SRIVT. And my research really journey started in early 2000s, maybe 2003 or 4, when I was the director of Center for Indic Studies at the University of Massachusetts, and American government and scholars basically talked about bhasma as a danger because it has metal in it. So I got contacts from some people to see whether I can do something, and the only thing I could do was do some research. And so the first thing I started knowing my whatever little knowledge I had about Sanskrit to find out what really bhasma means. It is normally translated as ash. But when I really looked at it, I did my own etymology of it, and bha means prakash or light, and ma means to stop, rokna in Hindi or in Sanskrit. So that means, bhasma is something that is that its light has been prevented or stopped. And light in this case, I translated as a toxicity. So concern in the modern chemistry or medical science about bhasma because it has metal in it is a valid, but bhasma is not just metal. It has been processed. So that's very important thing to know. So we did some research. I had a student who did her PhD in this field. We looked at cytotoxicity. We just used a regular nanoparticles from silver, and that was very toxic. But when we used nanoparticles that were bhasma, they were not toxic at all, as you can see. We did further experiment actually with this, and then we learned that actually this is a deep biochemistry and molecular biology that is going on, and it acts as a bioenhancer, means it really helps other drugs to get into the system. And the whole mechanism we have worked out Not completely, but at least in the beginning, we know what kind of proteins it interacts with and what it does. So it's really a very subtle and deep biological process rather than just simply saying that this is metal and it is toxic. So that's the area of research I began. And then I did some more research of what is really the overall application. So even silver nanoparticles are in society, in this world, is not just, we're not talking about bhasma, we're talking about just nanoparticles. Nanomedicine has become a very big deal. Nanoparticles are being used for a variety of things. So even silver nanoparticles, the field is pretty wide open and lucrative. There is a risk even in this area, $2.5 billion industry in 2022, because it can be used for electronics and various other things. I looked up the overall nanoparticle industry. It is expected to be $51 billion industry. If you just think about it, worldwide wheat market today is only about 6 billion. So people can eat food, which is only 6 billion, but this nanoparticle industry is a very huge. And if you really compare that with agricultural sector today, agriculture is very, very little, it's only about 14% of the GDP. But this bhasma technology, because it has or nanoparticle technology that can be developed through agricultural plants, and that can become a huge market for farmers. And I got this inspiration actually from Dr. Bala, who actually is so happened that he visited my laboratory. I think it was in 2017, because I had done some work, and that the work was something that he came to know from somebody. I'm not exactly sure where Dr. Bala Sastry came to know, but he came to visit my lab, and because he had heard, maybe he had seen some of my publications, and he talked about how he is able to make these nanoparticles very differently, very efficiently. The one nanoparticles I was not making, I was just buying it. And that has a process of several, maybe over a month. Traditionally, how Ayurvedic people make bhasma. But he said he can make it in few hours. I didn't believe it. I really actually visited Guntur to see it, whether they can show it to me. And he did. I had only an afternoon, and he really had everything ready. Copper. He showed me copper bhasma, and he mixed everything. And then in front of me, I could see the nanoparticles appear. I still didn't believe it. So I said, well, I have to see the whole thing, because I didn't know what else he had added in it. So of course, that time I had my flight back, so I couldn't stay. But next, I said I will come back again. The next time I went for 3 days and made him do everything in front of me. And he did. And it's the same process. Again, when he mixed everything, in just 2 hours, you could see the nanoparticles. So I'm very impressed that that too more, because he's nothing to do with chemistry at all. He's not even Sanskrit scholar. He's just an astrologer, but he knows Sanskrit very well. So I asked him, and he said that he really got this knowledge by reading Sanskrit texts. And he told me something that I didn't know, that there are six meanings of Sanskrit literature that is in India. And one of them is Ausadhi meaning, or means the medicinal meaning, and which is what he was interpreting. So I'm amazed and really impressed by his determination, knowledge, and practice. And so I'm very, very pleased to be associated with SRIVT. And actually, we have signed an MOU. My institute has signed an MOU with that institution, and I've been associated since then. Now, what I want to talk about, that ancient education system for modern education system. How can we learn from ancient education system? I want to give you an example here of a professor, history professor, Timothy Walker in the University of Massachusetts. He studied Portuguese history. India had Portuguese had a colony in India, that's Goa, and he said he told that how Portuguese learned this Ayurvedic technology from India and how they used to acquire great influence in the world, including actually colonized Brazil, which is the only Portuguese-speaking country in the in America actually, and they made tons of money by using the knowledge, Ayurvedic knowledge of Indian traditional medicines, including, I'm assuming, including Bhasma. But the scientific community doesn't exactly really get it or appreciate it, as you can see in this article, Searching for Science in India's Traditional Medicine. But actually says this is this quixotic quest. It's not very complimentary. It seems like, you're making yourself fool or something like that. But India has had really very strong economic contribution in the world. Actually, at one time, not just before the British came, actually, India had nearly 1/4 of the world's economy. And obviously, because technologies were involved. So I think it's important to understand that this is not just simply a talk, it's a reality. Now, how I want to just take you briefly to how the evolution happens and how the man and plants are evolved. Genetics is normally used for a basis for evolution. And so without really belaboring the whole issue because of the shortage of time, I would like to say that human, for example, genome has 3 billion base pairs. Bacteria has only 5 million base pairs, but bacteria has 80% efficiency. Humans have only 1.4% efficiency. So just to give a sense of how we should be looking, not just the size of the genome. Humans have only 30,000 genes. Plants have 50,000 genes. So plants actually have more genes. And the onion has 6 times more DNA. Fern, which is also a kind of plant, has 3,000 times more DNA. So they have really tremendously more advantage. And I wouldn't go in detail as to how, like polyploidy and other things, how they are able to manage their environment, other things. But the point is that it seems like environment is awfully more complicated and has a lot more in its bag to be able to use this to deal with the environment. And so, and whereas the human beings basically live artificial life and they do not have that much of opportunity to grow and evolve. So if you really think about from that criteria, actually humans are probably least evolved. We can always appreciate something that has been part of India's tradition. So plants, like I said, have polyploidy, that they can deal with environmental changes much better than we as human beings. And also plants have been there much longer, more natural and most independent. So plants actually are very good source of knowledge as well as technology. And this is what at least Indian Ayurveda community and herbal medicine community has used it. And Dr. Sastry has also utilized that from his Sanskrit knowledge. There are a lot of problems, a lot of hopes, of needs of and expectations of youth today in the entire world, whether it's related to career or freedom or harmony, stability, all that. And how do we go about it? Well, educational enterprise. They have a campus, faculty, administration, staff, students. This is how they are managing. And they are now making multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. I mean, something that I also am taking advantage because of being a chemist. I used the Ayurvedic knowledge to chemistry. So it's a very rewarding to all of us in that sense. Education in USA, there are over 50 million students in elementary and secondary schools. And then there is a various different kind of groups that they have. In fall of 2015, some 20 million students were expected to attend American colleges and universities. So, in the world, 131 million students in higher education and expected to double by 2025. So it will be more like 200 or 300 million students. 8 million students study abroad. It's a very lucrative market because people pay tuition fees. On the other hand, what is education, for example, in India versus in the Western world? I think it's important to pay attention to that. I'll give you two examples here. Mahatma Gandhi was known as father of nation, and Thomas Jefferson is also known as American founding father. There they have very different kind of requirements or view. Citizenry is vital. The education for citizenry is very vital requisite for our survival as a free people. Now they say that any person born after that day should ever acquire the rights of citizenship. So it is required for being a citizen until he could read and write. Why? Because they can read and write the rules. So that's very important from Western point of view. On the other hand, from Eastern point of view, actually this is a quotation of Huxley that Mahatma Gandhi does. So that man, I think, has had a liberal education, who has been so trained in youth that his body is the ready servant of his will and does with ease and pleasure all the work that as a mechanism it is capable of. It's basically, it's a self-growth versus social growth is an important aspect from these two. Global expenditure is very high. We are talking about trillions of dollars being spent for education. $2.5 trillion, according to one estimate, in 2005. And one of the major part of this education system is books. And since the revolution of books, where people can easily find books, or can read, or can be read, or can be taught, and then can be tested. It's just the books are the issues. Before that, it wasn't books, it was the teachers. And whether it's in Eastern world or the Western world, they were still teachers. But either in the Western world, it still is a book, because their Bible is the book. They are people of the book. And that was the first thing that they started having education about, learning about the books. But now, in modern world where everything is online, so future of America education, they think it's not going to be in classrooms. Actually, higher education, this bubble is bigger than student loans. Basically, they are very much concerned about it. And say college, new challenge, keeping students in school, because students don't sit in the school because they can just get information online with the computers, on their phones. So it is becoming a challenge. And this is about 10 years ago story. Now, obviously, it is well known that the students are learning online a lot more and by themselves. Whether right or wrong, that's another issue. So one has to be, if you want to become a global leader of your different kind of education, you have to go global. And one of the things that I was happy to be involved with, that I took American teachers to India to learn about Indian education system. Although that we are talking about modern education system, but they were also able to be exposed to ancient education system, because different traditions still follows to a certain degree, whether it's Buddhist or Hindus or Sikhs or Jains. So I have some experience, and this was very exciting to all of them. And why go global? Because it says in Mahopanishad that the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam idea, Ayam Bandhurayam Neti Garana Lagchetasam, Udara Charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. If you want to make the whole world as a family, education is the key. And the future of college is online, as I said, and it's cheaper. But here is the about $10 trillion by 2030. They're expecting global education to be. So it is not only Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but also Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam from the point of view of business. Education is a business if you can bring it out. And also it a huge influence, not just the money business, but the influence that you can have on people and on the environment, the society, stability. Corona created some opportunities. And it is a Corona tree when Corona happened. But the basic reason I want to show it here is that said virtual education. I'm sorry, the slide didn't come out that well here. Something went wrong. But virtual education for all is what I think Corona forced us to do because we had to do the classes online. What are the educational issues facing humanity? Training versus teaching. We just train people to do certain things, or really we teach them so that they can do it by themselves? Learning and living. Can they learn and then live like that? The cost of education is very high. Creativity versus competition. There is a lot of competition in today, whether it's civil services or getting jobs or getting into the market. And also slavery versus self-realization. So if you are learning for yourself, by yourself, then you are independent, you realize yourself. But otherwise, you just act like a slave for somebody else telling you what to do. So India has a huge young population, about 600 million, more than that. Actually, this is data for 2018. So it can use that to make an influence in the international market as well as the whole humanity. And hurdles are, of course, you have to create a system, because system is something else. Economics and business has to be modified. But the opportunities are really humongous because you have technology, pedagogy, and concepts. If you can have, then they can make you the difference. So what is in the process from India's perspective? You have instruction through teachers, acharya and guru. These are different concepts than what we have professors and deans and whatever else. Place of learning is school versus nature, because now we have buildings and we teach in the schools, but the Indian system is more like natural. University ranking, you have library, you have teacher-student ratio, publications, known to others. These are the criteria that people rank university. But your students' performance is the really criteria for Indian system, where the guru used to be known through their students. Vedic system, what we have knowledge in Akash Tattva or element, or the ether element. Learning with nature, experiential learning rather than just bookish learning, and union with the universe. Asatoma sadgame, tamasoma jyotirgame, mrityorma amritam game. So you learn from untruth or ignorance to the truth, and then from the dark or ignorance to light or knowledge, and then you become immortal in terms of knowledge. So education enterprise, like I said earlier, but here in this model, in Indian model, you can have everything else here, but it will be holistic, not just interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, but you have to be holistic. You have to be part of it. And that's the way these things happen. Now, Indian system considers mother as the first guru, who's is a foundation, and is introduces to the father. Father means, beyond your mother's lap. And father is the next guru who expands your horizon, introduces to the acharya. It is very important to start this education at home. And then acharya is the final guru, and his ultimate knowledge gives, and introduced to the Brahma, means the whole Brahman, the whole universe. So that's your journey for knowledge, and you can do everything else in that sense. So you have to think about what is acharya versus guru, what is professor versus upadhyaya, what is teacher versus shikshak. These things are really important things. I'll try to set some light on some of these things, but obviously because of the shortage of time, I would not be able to elaborate. But then you can study so many aspects, engineering to language. And to give some idea, Manu Smriti has written about mother. Is very important to know that yatra nariyasya pujante ramante tatra devata, means where the women are so great that they will be worshipped. That's where all the gods are around. That's where all the gods roam around. So it is important. Sometimes people misunderstand that. They think that every woman should be respected. No, it's the real meaning is every woman should be respectable, and then only she can be guru for a student. Wherever the women are not respected, or they do not get opportunity to be respected, then that family or that country or that world is not going to be happy, or will not be able to prosper. So it's very important that we think about that. And then finally, I wanted to say something about Acharya and Guru. It's an important thing to know that he says Upadhyayan and Dasacharya, Acharyanam Satam Pita, Sahasram tu Pitrum Mata, Gauravena Atirichyate. It means a professor or teacher is 10 of them are equivalent to one Acharya, means somebody who teaches you by showing experience, giving experience. And a father is 100 times better or more useful or worth than Acharya. 100 times, 100 Acharyas are equivalent to one father. And there are 1,000 fathers are equivalent to one Mata or mother. So mother is the learning very beginning, the learning at the very beginning from the womb to whatever, 6, 7, 8 years until the child is able to go out and deal with the father. It's the mother who builds the foundation. So this is the very important ancient tradition that we need to follow in today's world. Universities, I wouldn't go really that much in detail, but I wanted to point this out. The universities that have been created, they were initially, even though it means the whole or the totality, but when it was, if you really look at the etymology of kul, because it's just like what we talk about Gurukul. Kul means also the total, completely, but it is completely comes from the Guru. So etymology of Kul also means total, and everything, the whole family, the whole the lineage. So they have similarity in there. But then otherwise, the university foundations were created by the church and the mosques, and they were only teaching the books. So current system that we have of instruction and the knowledge and the education is really based on the books and teaching, not the totality. So even though university also means that, but the Gurukul Parampara or the tradition is totally, as an Acharya and Guru is very different than just somebody who teaches as a teacher. So it's very important that we understand that. And then the academic freedom or academic tradition that has been created was created by a philosopher by the name of Plato, where the academia was considered where whatever he was teaching. And there's a great history about that. We need to understand his guru, that was Socrates, who was really the guru at that time, and he would not compromise on anything, and he will teach young people with no money, without any other expectation. So I think with that tradition, if we bring it today and combine with Indian tradition of knowledge, I think that will be a very useful thing for the youth and in the world. And that tradition, like I said, there is a book revolution, but then before that, it was a guru who was teaching everybody individually. And what you need to do in that journey for today, how do we adopt it for today? You have to individual, family, social, economic, political, philosophical, technology, environment, all these things have so many situations. And what we need to do is observations and contemplations. Then we read and listen also. Then combine with that, come up with concepts. And then you create some physical, chemical, social, all kind of models, and learn in action. Stories can be very useful because stories are real. If the stories, I don't mean the make-up stories. And then you practice it. You do the action. You have to have the conduct. Then you have a self-learning, self-realization and self-learning. Now, in virtual world today, which is in a way you can call it Maya, Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. So virtual is really just a Maya, but it is an efficient, inexpensive or free, more social, less physical, faster with text, social media, needs words, expressions. You spend about 15 hours, take classes in a week. So you're 168 hours you're basically wasting. You can have mutual interaction like music, better face expression if you are in person, cognition. These things are very important compared to the virtual. But there is a way you can deal with those virtual things. They can be adapted, and we are creating something. And Dr. Sastry has created his institution and this connection, interaction with the various agencies, universities and colleges and institutions. But we create this natural in the real world at home? Can they learn by sitting at home? And that is something, a challenge for us to do. And there have been people mentioned that there have been universities before in India, for example, Nalanda University, but actually Nalanda was not a university. This is some of the copycatting that makes mistake. Nalanda was a Mahabihara, where Buddhist monastery, which also served as a center for learning, but with practice. It's very important to know. So it's easy to say, but we also have university, but university is very different. Even these words, chancellor, vice chancellor, all these things are really coming from the church traditions, not from the guru traditions that we have in India. And guru considered that to be a part of family, and students become more important than even their own children for a guru. So that is the kind of tradition we need to understand. And this is Nalanda has been supported in last 15 years with different. It is already an international, if we can use the same system that we had before. Indonesia, Australia, Laos, Thailand, China, Singapore, Japan, all these people have contributed with money to revive Nalanda, but not as a university that has been system that has been adopted, but as a Gurukul model. If they created that, I think that will definitely get India on the map of international education, and something that we need to think about doing. And that happens like you need to learn, you fix your mind, realize, learn, and ultimately you do a scientific approach of conducting. You have to conduct. And I hope that Sri Maharshi, in the leadership of Dr. Sastri, Bala Sastri, will lead this way through his conferences and through his training and through his collaboration, including my institution is connected with them. I look forward to working this more and for the service of the young people and the society. Thank you very much.
So good evening. My name is Kowtha. I have been involved in learning Vedic science since childhood. My father and my grandfather helped me, guide me while even living in America. I did my science in America, learned engineering and mathematics in New York City, and moved to Washington. 30 years at Sigma Xi, the Science and Engineering Honor Society, and I have retired and now work in a nonprofit called Mazer in Lanham, Maryland. We have the Siva Vishnu Temple locally and Murugan Temple. We have about 7 temples in the area. So I volunteer in cultural activities and give lectures there. The talk today, as a Rotarian, I'm in the environmental sustainability, is about ancient practices for sustainable corn development in the Andean Mountain Regions of South America, and hopefully provide new outlook in agriculture and in old traditions. So I'm going to go through what I will be presenting in a way that hopefully will involve things that I do from Sigma Xi, from the IEEE that I belong to, the technical societies, and hopefully bring Vedic philosophy in what we do in our goal. So the aim of the presentation is to hopefully introduce the traditional belief in agriculture, move to the paradigm shift for future growth, and of course talk why I'm doing this, the objective to get information to the community, and hopefully bring the agricultural revolution that's going to be down from the historical perspective and the changes that we need to do. Of course, we have to change within us, the cultural change, and hopefully I'll be discussing some of these new wisdom, and finally summarize the ways forward. For example, we have activities coming up in the Rotary for environmental sustainability and youth and getting engagement throughout. So again, I'm involving the IEEE, the society that I belong to. So we have a huge environmental sustainability program, and Sigma Xi, the Science and Engineering Honor Society, with the Vedic thoughts that my parents and my grandparents had instilled in me. So I'm going to start with the introduction of where we came from the Hinduism perspective. According to the scholars, the whole earth belonged to Manu. That's the Vedic period. South America belongs to Manu based on the Bhagavad Puran. The Manu's second son, Priyavata, traveled the whole earth. His chariot scratched the entire earth, his kingdom, into 7 seas. We call the Dvipas, 7 Dvipas. In the US, our Hindu priests call US as Krauncha Dvipa. And of course, I'm going to be talking about support comes from the local beliefs from Central America, which is next to us in America, Mexico, the Mayans. And we think their origination from the Nagas. And from South America, the Andean and the others, the Inca and the Aztec with the sun god, which I will be describing. And then, of course, when you go to Chile and Easter Islands and Peru, we learn a lot more. And of course, this is from the 16th, in the Bhagavad Puran, 5th Skanda, 16th Adhyaya, and 2nd Canto. Again, this is 7 Dvipas. We will be focusing on the Central South America. Again, the Easter Islands that I would love for people to go visit. It's in Asia, but it's in South America. So it's in the Pacific Islands that Chile owns. And then, of course, when you look at these Mayan agroforestry that had been shown in the first slide of agroforestry in the Mayan, you have the sun god with that delineation with the pictures of the sun gods that with the 2 snakes that abounded. Again, depiction of the Nagas as the origins. So again, bringing the cultural evolution from the traditional belief and provide human development and progressive innovation. For example, food production evolved independently based on the surroundings and human migration, which was the necessity. So if you look at the Rig Veda the grains, the Navadhaniyas that we know and learn about are what was Ravi in the case of Yajurveda, available as necessity in the environment. Corn, on the other hand, is called a European maize from the wild grasses around 7,000 to 10,000 years ago. They claim it's from central Mexico, but it went to the South American Andean region around 4,000 years ago as human migrated downwards. Here, the natives were experimenting on beans, maize, potatoes, and quinoa. So it's all local entities that we call the 3 sisters in America, in the American lifestyle. Things that grow locally, the beans, the maize, and again, the sunflower, the wildflowers that bring in what is unique to the Americas, the Kauncha Dvipa. The result is the production of varieties of color, shape, and yield. Of course, as we know, that maize was not unique to India. It was introduced in the 16th century by the Portuguese, following the trade routes that Vasco da Gama through the Arabs came to the south of India. So maize was introduced in the southern hinterlands. But again, these are cultural, traditional beliefs, not Brahma's creation, but what of Vishwamitra, again, looking down on Agastya being in the south, how they learned about the practices there. So again, is it about Brahma? Is it about Vishwamitra? We can have discussions on it. But again, the aim is that over time, necessity forced evolution and creativity. And again, the maize production, the corn, the agroforestry that you see in the Mayans, is unbelievable that we can learn from. And over time, you can take the two examples of the corn and the potatoes. The potatoes come in various formats. In Idaho, that's the staple in America. We have a potato that weighs around 150 pounds, one potato. And so these are the various colors over time that have changed. And the corn itself has, again, multi-floral displays. Again, this is a wild grass on the top that's described here. And then, of course, over the archaic ages, that how it has evolved. It's a story that we all need to learn and educate our youngsters as they learn where the necessities come from. So potatoes, corn are the staple food in the Kronchadvipa and the South. And it's now, I guess, the major entity throughout. So these are what you call superfoods that, as nutritionists have seen, they can add to for engage in what fortification that would need for a daily caloric output. But these are discussions that we can have to make sure that people are comfortable with what they have. But over time, these have evolved. So again, the traditional belief of agriculture is the land is the first requirement of farming, and burnt forest grounds are converted into farming. Identify suitable requirements for farming, result first crop returns that would be unusable because of the lack of nutrients. So again, composting, all of it, the Aryans, the agroforestry that the Mayans did, we can learn from them. The change of the sequence of crops, of changing the expense of a regular crop, the old wisdom of social conservatism has been changed as a paradigm shift for future growth. So again, the subsistence farming with the farming implements changed, with composting providing the nutrients that needed in the ground, have been evolving over time, and the Mayans have learned it. And the Scientific American paper that's on the title describes it for generations, how they have evolved to make sure that it's sustainable. So the objective of this presentation is to provide this vision for possible new adaptation for agricultural advancements in the Andean regions to other areas. So from that burn till the ground to how we can overcome the loss of civilizations, like what happened when the Saraswati River died up and the end of the Indus Valley civilization. How did these natural obstacles by nature, the Andean mountains, provided them wall for clouds, creating ways to grow, and the wisdom that they had to improve the new farming lands, new ways of cultivating, and of course, pushing the envelope of what are the new areas. So if you go to Easter Islands, and if you look at the map of how they have moved on, sea farming, arid land, like what they have done in the Middle East, desert cultivation, space farming in the futuristic domains, as we go away from our Mother Earth to Mars and the moon, we need to come up with creative ways of taking these necessities that we need with us away from the 9 Navadhanyas that we have been used to. So changing the cultural from social conservatism, we need to modify farming technology, energized with additives, not a new invention. We need to take burnt ash, enriches carbon and ash minerals. The new approaches from the Inca ancestors explore new innovations that provide development of resilient breeds of seeds, enrich the soil with ways that we can do with synthetic nutrients, and of course, ground conservation are the areas that we can explore new areas of farming in free form, in artificial space, and of course, subsistence farming that we can push on. So the paradigm shift in the farming from the old culture includes rulemaking that are easy, that we can learn from. The acceptance from the people that we would is slow, it takes time, but we need to use resources that we have to reduce this transition. And of course, we need to have ethics to cover us as violations are bound to occur. Farming related violations are lack of confidence in science and scientific methodologies. So we have these technical societies. I belong to the Washington Academy of Sciences. We always have ethics, and we have discussions that we allow for mistakes that we can educate so that people can be prepared and for the changes as they come. Especially in this day and age of climate change, we have this new culture causing these new steps, recognition of pressure from the environment to make these changes that are going to be impugned on us by the next generations. So this paradigm of shift of farming with what we have learned in the good old Vedic traditions are some things that we need to push. For example, in this depiction from the Cambodian painting of Samudra Madhana by Devas and Rakshasas, seabed farming, that's something that's the Japanese are amazing at. They're using successful ways of tapping sea wealth. And of course, our ancient teachers foretold us of what was happening. So doing the sea culture is challenging, but it's heavily rewarding. It's not just the fruits from the sea, but also amazing nutrients that we can potentially tap. So these are full potentials that can be yet to be explored. These are the areas that we will be pushing. And of course, these new areas for soil enrichment are being carried out in research centers and field trials. And of course, how do we enrich the ground soil for carbon? And how do you do sequestration? And how do you build benign organic derivatives to help? The ground complexity, the water tables, reversing desertifications are important. Providing vertical stacks for holdouts on the plants and nourish the plant's roots directly. Israel is the leader in the desert cultivation. They have made miracles in Hanaya and all these that they have captured from the Golan Heights and built an amazing resource that if they can do it with these technologies for desert cultivation, we should be able to do it in others. Of course, industry from its own has provided us the way forward with small aquaculture to, again, commercial entities, startups like Garden. You can get green and organic growth in volume that would sustain habitats. Again, water, habitable underwater enclosures, artificial light for successful photosynthesis are ways to go. And of course, the medical and other benefits from the sea plants where the Japanese are leaders. Most important are we need to educate and overcome the old taboos on the consumption of sea-based plant foods. And our children will be telling us, and they have it right. And we have to get that into our discussion at all levels. So I have given some ideas of doing the changes in agriculture. The most is the population growth, the desertification, land, and natural limitations, what Andes is like. But using new technologies, they have accomplished successes that we can learn from. Some of the ideas and visions must include the past wisdom in agriculture, recognize the requirements and resilience to changing environment and reorganize the approaches. Explore alternative land-based approaches to include reverse engineering the arid and desert landscape into new innovations, and overcome the traditionalists on new approaches of farming to overcome the stubborn taboos that we have in our daily life. So the opportunities exist: innovative research, carbon enrichment, incentives for adaptation. Again, we have seen this with COVID. We have come up with new ways of feeding the hungry, and there have been unbelievable success stories that are sprouting up all over. But the issues are that this soil-free farming, acceptance of these ideas of when we are seeing disappearing farmland, and reorganizing the approaches to develop new test plants, directly providing the nourishment and requirement, and focusing on things that really provide energy, like quinoa, that should be in our staple, and these amazing potatoes that we would not use, but we need to move to that. Of course, provide this research initiatives in social science, and educate the old traditionalists to accept the new approaches to farming. So as we celebrate 100 years of STEM in Washington, Environmental Summit, we do food recovery, we do activities for the environment, and we do this on a basis to provide ways to engage our youth and prepare them for the food recovery with using AI and other techniques. That's what we do here. And I belong to the Washington Academy of Sciences as we celebrate an IEEE 100th anniversary of STEM to push the envelope of what would be food deserts in 2049 in space and other environments that we will be cohabitating and learning to grow in these reduced environments. So hope there will be a lot of discussion, and I'm here to engage from the Hindu form, but on engaging with the youth on what is to come. And hopefully they would be our young leaders pushing us for change. Thank you.